All right, guys, welcome back to the garage. So we are getting ready to go to the track again. We got a few things figured out on the car, and for those of you who saw the last video from the track, you'll remember that I said something about the methanol pressure was dying off or was having problems or whatever. And we tried a few different things at the track. We pulled the lines off, we blew the lines out, we did all that kind of stuff. And there was no obstructions in the line, and there's nothing crazy like that. And the pump sounded fine, so it was kind of weird. Didn't quite understand what was going on. So a little quick explanation of how the car is set up. The fuel system on this car consists of a small fuel pump that the engine runs on low demand. When the engine gets above 3,500 RPMs, the big Magna Fuel Pro Tuner 750 turns on, and the magic happens. Well, about the same time, about 3,000 RPMs I think is what I have it set to, the methanol pump turns on. But the methanol injectors are not spraying yet. They don't spray until it sees 6 or 7 pounds of boost. So the point of that is to turn the pump on first, fill the lines up, and then some amount of time later it starts dispersing the methanol. So, having said all that, the methanol was not getting into the engine, and I was seeing some weird spikes in the methanol pressure as the car went down the track, and I thought for sure it was the cheap Chinese sensor that I had on the methanol fuel pressure regulator. Changed it out, went back to the track the next week, which was what you saw in the last video, and that didn't fix it. So I pulled the pump off the car, the methanol pump, which, by the way, is the exact same pump that I use on the engine side, the low demand pump. But anyways, so the methanol pump, I took it over on the other side of the garage, hooked some hoses up to it, stuck it on a battery. It works fine. Now I'm confused. So I took it the rest of the way apart, and this fitting comes with the pump. Now this is actually out of the new pump, which is now a spare pump, and I'm going to show you what this thing has in it. Some of you may already know what's going on here, but let's see if you can see. There you go. You can see inside that thing just a little bit. There's a check valve in there, and let me see. I'm going to shine some light on it. Maybe you can see what. There you go. You can see it real good now. There's a check valve inside of that fitting. And you can see, I don't know if you can see, it's a little further down there. So the purpose of that check valve is for fuel injected cars. When you turn the car off, it traps the fuel between the fitting, the outlet side of the pump, and the injectors, and it allows the car to start quickly the next time. The engine doesn't have to turn over and prime the pump. So I took a punch like this and put it into the fitting like this and knocked the one-way valve out of it, and that's it. That's what the little doodad looks like. So if you should happen to run one of these kind of pumps, this is the no-name brand Most Plus. Do yourself a favor and knock that fitting out of there so you don't have any kind of trouble like I had. The ones that are actually on the car are the AEM version. They're all made by the same place and sold under about 132 different names, give or take 7. I'm not sure. So enough of the long explanation there. Now we have one more problem to address. The last video at the track, you may remember the car stalling and dying as I go to stage the car, and that was what appeared to be a faulty map sensor. And after talking to some knowledgeable tuners, if you will, some guys that work on some more serious cars, even more so than Bob, suggested that the map sensor being solid mounted on the engine or directly mounted to the intake manifold is making the map sensor die a slow and painful death. So what we're going to do is, this is the old map sensor, okay? right there, new map sensor. So we're going to use that plastic push to connect line like I have on the intake manifold and other places, and we're going to remote mount the map sensor using the 8L clamp and a piece of that plastic line, and hopefully get away from that problem, because these little guys are $150 a piece, and it's not fun to have to buy those. So now the car's ready to go. After I put this back on, we are going to the track. We're going to make some passes, and hopefully we're going to set some new personal bests now that we have functioning methanol. Okay, so real quick, there's a light hanging down in the background. Okay, so we get to the track and find out that it is bracket day. It's like the beginning of the bracket race season or something. And yeah, so test and tune was really minimal. And the only really bad part about it is that on bracket day, the track prep is not what it normally is for the radial cars, or the days that there's more radial cars than there are slick cars, because it seems to be that the bracket guys all run slicks. So long story short, the track was terrible. Like the wait was really long, and it just wasn't a good track day. It is what it is. So anyways, we decided to stick it out, and we got to make there really wasn't even test and tune, to be honest with you. They decided to let us make some test and tune hits between rounds, and so yeah, it was pretty eventful, let me tell you. I only made 2 passes, and I only have cell phone footage because it was only Chris and I, and it's kind of hard to do without a third person handling the camera. So I'll explain real quick what happens on these 2 passes. The first pass, car leaves the line pretty good, kind of surprising. Wheels in the air, whole 9 yards. As soon as I click high gear, if you listen close, you'll hear 2 or 3 brief backfires. Boom, boom, and a bigger boom. And let me tell you, that boom inside the car is a whole lot louder than it is outside the car. So what happened was, when I clicked into high gear, it shook the tires so bad that all of the relays in the relay panel came flying out, and they landed in the floor. And I don't have any carpet in it right now, so it sounded like metal bouncing off of the track and hitting the bottom of the car, and I just knew for sure that the engine had blown up. And so I'm slowing down now, because I already got up to probably 110 or so. And as I go to make the turn, I kind of got a peek down in the floor of the car like that, and I see the relays laying there. I thought that was kind of odd. So I make the turn, I pull over on the return road, and I see all 5 relays laying in the floor. And so I'm relieved at this point, because I don't see any oil, I don't smell any smoke, Throw all the relays back in, fire the car up, drive it back to the pits, everything's good. No problem, right? So I'm going to grab the camera, I'm going to take you around and show you, just as a refresher, what it looks like where those relays are sitting at. Okay, so just as a refresher, and what I had mentioned a few minutes ago, all of these relays right here, there's 5 of them. They fell out into the floor, or they got shook out into the floor, and it was a huge relief when I started making the turn onto the return road to see that those relays were laying there, and not the rods and the crankshaft and pieces of the block laying in the track, I guess is what I'm getting at. But if you see, these things come out kind of easy like that, and what I heard was, but 5 of them bouncing in the floor, going 100 miles an hour or so down the track. So, man, that was a huge relief to see this thing not blown up. So on to the next pass. The second pass is a little less eventful. I turned the launch RPM down 100 RPMs just to make sure that it didn't do a wheelie, and I wanted to kind of, I guess, soften the hit, so to speak. And I also put a timing retard just about 1/10 of a second before the shift and about 3/10 of a second after the shift to make sure that it didn't shake the tires either. So on that pass, what happened was the car backfired. And then after looking at the videos a few times, I noticed that it actually started to backfire right before it shook the tires. Could possibly even be related to shaking the tires or the cause of shaking the tires. But when I got home and I started looking at the data logs, the setting that I used a few videos ago to get rid of all these problems we had been reversed for some reason, and nobody can really tell me why that happened, and I absolutely did not put it back. They say that potentially I opened an old tune that had the setting on it incorrectly, and that did it, and so on and so forth. I don't know. I'm not buying it, but nonetheless, I got it figured out pretty quick, so we're ready to go to the track again. Okay guys, so that is in fact the end of the video. 2 crappy half passes and a lot of talking with a little bit of explanation of what happened on those 2 half passes. So, having said all that, oh, you know, one thing I forgot to mention, the oxygen sensor also went out. If it ain't one thing, it's another, and I mean to tell you, it can be anything with this car. So, yeah. That's the end of the video. Well, I don't have anything else to tell you. It just sucked. So, however, I want to make sure that you guys know, stay tuned for the next video. Today is Wednesday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever, Tuesday. Today is Tuesday. This coming weekend, the weekend of the 29th, there's going to be a huge race at XRP in Ferris, Texas, which is our home track. Flashlight start, hosted by I'll make sure I got it right here, David Van Norris. He is a YouTuber. He has a tangerine colored newer-ish Mustang twin turbo Coyote car, really fast. Anyways, I think him and his brother or their company or something along those lines is hosting this race. It's going to be big. 1320 video is going to be there. Of course, we'll be there. Lots of other people. Be sure to check it out. New video coming. It's probably going to be Monday because it's going to be a long weekend. So, that's it, guys. End the video. We'll see you in the next one. Thanks for stopping by.